Hello, I'm recording a Bitcoin update and just to talk about where we are, because a 10% pullback in a very fast move to start the week isn't, of course, much fun, and it's going to make people nervous. So let's talk about where we are. First of all, let's look at previous bull runs, because in previous bull runs we've had some really nasty shakeouts as we get to kind of closer to the top. For example, here we went from 58,000 down to 42,000. Here we went from 42,000 all the way down to 29,000. And that was still solidly in an uptrend. So Bitcoin does tend to do that the more kind of extended it gets and the more stretched it gets on the upside. And so far, this Bitcoin pullback is not a reversal. On the weekly, it's just a little inside bar. But I am a little bit concerned about how extremely bullish everybody is and the kind of level we're at. So let's talk about why. Well, normally, like everybody knows, my favorite trading setup is if a market makes a nice three-wave move, I look for a three-wave pullback, and my ideal pullback is 50% of the move. And so if I get a three-wave equal measure move, which I've drawn really badly, let's look at it like this. If I get a three-wave equal measured move and I look for this little B wave in the middle to be three waves as well, and it's 50% of the whole rally, for me that's my textbook ideal setup. It just works so often. And it works well enough for it not to be a position where the worst case, it's never a bad loss, it's usually just a scratch. So let's talk about where we are then here, and I'm going to go to the monthly in Bitcoin, because monthly closes are important. So if I look at this move in Bitcoin and where we are with this three-wave rally, here in the middle, I think that we did make a very nice three-wave correction. And normally, if this is a wave one, wave two, remember, Elliott wave isn't my first passion, but I do kind of count. I'm a zigzag girl. I look for really nice equal measured moves, and I measure the relationship between them. So if we measure this first swing higher we made to this first high from here, we are around about that equal measured move level. It's at 40,000. Some people would measure it this way, and if you do that, that's fine. It's a little bit higher at 41,270. So we are kind of around that three-wave look here, a little bit extended on the upside. And if I measure where we are in terms of pullbacks, we are right at this 50% retrace level, which is corrective. And here's the thing, if you get a reversal at a 50% level, which is 40 on here in the spot Bitcoin, 42,200, which trades underneath the 38.2, which is at 35,900, then you will get a 50% pullback going the other way. So like your guaranteed part of the trade comes this bit in the middle where we come back to 50% of this whole rally. And that's going to be quite painful. Now I can't see how that would happen. Like, are they not going to approve the ETF? Why would they do that when we already have a, futures? It's crazy. And we have an ETF on the futures. So, and we have a spot ETF in other countries. But it could happen, and we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. Now, the thing about these big levels, which would be a bearish reversal level, and potentially this means that this whole pullback that we had from November 2021 to October 2022 was just the first leg of a bigger three-wave correction. So yeah, that wouldn't be so good, would it? That would mean another leg lower, down here, bounce, down here, and we would still be in a downtrend. So for me, getting beyond this kind of mean reversion 50% level is quite important. I would like this to continue higher. There is another way I like to look at the fibs, and I look at fib patterns. So if I go from this last five-wave rally, the whole five-wave rally, that's from the low in 2018 to the high that we made in 2021. You can see we reversed at a 786 fib level, confirmed it with the move above this 61.8. And when you do that, your target is the 38.2, which we've tagged. Now, quite often when you make this fib pattern, 786, 38.2, if you push through the 38.2, you'll keep going to the 236 fib, which takes us up to 53,000. That would be great, wouldn't it? That would be a nice kind of 1, 2 extended wave 3, lovely. That would be a really good look. We kind of need the ETF to blast us up there, or the ETF announcement to blast us up there. What I'm a little bit concerned about, though, is this high here that we made at the end of 2017 was when we had the CME futures announcement. We rallied so hard into that, and that literally was the high. In 2017, we went from Bitcoin being around under $1,000 per Bitcoin to almost $20,000. We rallied 20 times. And then when the CME futures started, which was December the 18th, that was the high that lasted for, a year. This was a year-long pullback following that. So I'm getting kind of quite nervous here. You can probably tell. So in terms of trend, it's super bullish. We're riding above all of our moving averages. We're making really nice, strong moves higher. But I would just really like to confirm it by pushing that little bit further. So then, if I measure from this first low to high, ideally, the 1.618 of this first swing, interestingly, is 50,000, which is a lovely big round number that Bitcoin likes. And so, yeah, I would really like us to spike up to 50,000 or push into 50,000 before we sell the news after the ETF announcement and have a little bit of a pullback. For me, that would be a little bit more bullish, and if we did that, then I would up to 50,000. Then I would be looking, for us to make a wave 4 rather like this wave 2, and then continue higher in a fifth wave. And Bitcoin really does like to do strong fifth waves. It kind of gets very strong at the end of bullish runs. So that's kind of where I'm seeing Bitcoin at the moment. So how do we know if this is going to be, so at this tricky level that we're at then, how do we know if this is going to be a reversal or if this is just going to be a pullback and we're going to keep going? Well, because as I said last week, I've got out of my leverage long positions in Bitcoin. Doesn't mean that I'm not long Bitcoin. I'm still holding Bitcoin. I'm just kind of not leveraged long, because getting into year end and these kind of big levels and a 50% retrace level for me is always a little bit, squeaky bum time. You just, yeah, good time to de-risk a little bit. I'm long, but I'm not leveraged long. So first off, let's go down to the weekly and let's just look at this most recent swing we've done. And so for me, I'm going to say that from this low to this high, pulling back more than a 236 fib would say that we are correcting this swing. And if we were to do that, I would say from this low, the 236 fib becomes my trend support. And so that's what this previous swing high here and 37.18. So I'm not going to be bearish for that bigger move unless we trade underneath and close and get rejected underneath 37.18, and potentially short term, if we're going to stay really bullish, this 40,000 price, which is the 236 fib of this whole swing, becomes really important. So that's really how I'm seeing Bitcoin at the moment. And so in between these two levels, we've got kind of a really interesting kind of sideways range zone. And this is, when we've had previous corrections in Bitcoin, in this swing that we've made from the September low, we've really only gone sideways for a week or two, and then we've continued higher. So far we've bounced textbook from this 236 fib retrace and from the daily 20 moving average, which was support perfectly when we made our correction at the end of November. And so for me, this is ideal trend support. So now we're going to see what we do here. Are we going to make a double top? Are we going to just rally halfway back and continue lower? For me, I'm not sure. As I said yesterday when I looked at this level, this is a really good level, but we need to see if it will retest, if it will hold a double bottom, if it will make a double bottom and reset here. For me, in terms of momentum, it hasn't quite clearly made a bottom here, you know, that I want to buy yet. I don't like the bearish cross of these moving averages. For me, in terms of moving averages, and this for me is a 20 and a 50, what I like to see a market do is kind of go sideways and pull the moving averages right down. And then when you move high, you get that indication that you're going up again at a much lower price. So this is a very, very tricky week in other markets in terms of four big central banks, the Eurozone, the UK, the Fed tomorrow, the Swiss National Bank. Today we have got US CPI inflation data, the last data that the Fed will see. Markets. And I think this is important for Bitcoin because I'm not a big fan so much of the halving cycle, but I do think that crypto and Bitcoin do very well when the US when market participants have a lot of liquidity. And so rate cuts next year, sooner rather than later, would be very good for Bitcoin and crypto markets. But rates higher for longer, I don't think will be. So I think it's good to pay attention to those. So short term, where is it then that we're in Bitcoin? It's very important support at 40,000, and if we lose it, we are likely to head lower to 37,000 in a bigger pullback, and underneath and holding underneath 37,000 would be very bad news for Bitcoin. So for now, just a pullback in a really nice uptrend, but a little bit of a tricky level, so we need to be a little bit careful. Very good news if we can continue to push higher to 50,000. I think this makes this much more likely that this is an impulsive, really nice move, and this is the reason. And also if I go from this high, so the reason that would be that this would be a really strong kind of wave 3 look. And I have to say also, if I go down to, there is a possibility here, you know, that we have done 5 waves up. And so back to the bottom of this wave 4, back to that 37,000 after a bounce is quite likely. Doesn't mean a bearish reversal, but it does mean it's possible. So it is a good time to trade carefully with leverage. Okay, I hope that's useful. 40,000 becomes important support. 36 or 37,000 quite likely if it goes, unfortunately.